Hello, welcome to another episode of Deck Musings. So, I'm going to do something a bit different deck-wise in this episode. We're around about this period in Magic's history, so Weatherlight has just rotated in, and if you notice here, we've actually come full circle. So we're back to pretty much where I was when I started the series. Originally, my plan was to work forward from a point in time where the concept of the two most recent blocks of Magic sets was effectively standard, or T2 I think as it referred to as well, type 2. But the allure of earlier sets dragged me back. So one of the problems I have now is that I've actually covered an awful lot of these archetypes either directly as they are at this point in Magic's history, because if you remember we were looking at some tournament decks, the World Championship decks, but also because some of the earlier decks where this particular group of cards, the old school Ice Age block, featured quite heavily, and as a consequence there were fairly similar archetypes kicking around. So I'm a bit concerned that I'm just going to be to the point where I'm actually just repeating, going back over cards. And I had a bit of a search around and couldn't really find any well-known tournament decks that heavily featured Weatherlight. I did look through my official deck builder's guide that I've got, that was put together actually around that time. It was actually put together just as Tempest was coming in, and it does have some Weatherlight block decks in there, but I don't know if they were ever played in tournament or ever archetypes ever featured in tournament. So I thought I'd pull in my backup plan with this series, which is to take a look at a theme deck. The other thing interesting about this theme deck, and I'll acknowledge this, is that it's a retrospective theme deck. So what do I mean by that? Well, it is a concept I've spoken about before. So theme decks, or precons, whatever you want to call them, they didn't actually exist until Tempest. So they weren't around about the time of Weatherlight. However, when Mirage block was introduced into Magic the Gathering Online retrospectively in 2005, some decks were created, and there were 4 decks for each of these sets for Mirage, Visions and Weatherlight, and they contained cards from the appropriate sets. So what you find with the Weatherlight ones, in addition to Weatherlight cards, they've got some cards from both Mirage and Visions. So I was looking through what deck to go with, and I thought it would be fun, looking down this list, to pick one which has a legendary in it, because it will dovetail nicely into the artwork video on Friday, and there might be potential for a bit of a lucky break with the Commander fodder episode as well, but we'll see. Doesn't always go in that direction. So I was looking through, deciding which one to do, and I thought this is the weirdest deck, and so this would be the one to do. So this actually has Morinfen in it, which sounds like some sort of painkiller, or sorry, should I say Morinfen, and also Infernal Tribute. But what we'll do is let's switch to Architect to go through this. Very strange deck. I don't know how much I'd like to play this, but it's more for the rabbit holes that it opens up. So we've got 23 creatures, single Circling Vultures, single blacks, 3/2. So you've got to be, you got to assume that there's going to be a pretty heavy downside here, and also it has flying. So yeah, flying 3/2, 1-drop. So what's the downside? Well, during your upkeep, remove the top creature card in your graveyard from the game or bury Circling Vultures, which is a pretty major downside. You're not going to be able to cast this on turn 1 because you've got to have a creature in the graveyard somehow. So I will see if there's any way of getting a creature in the graveyard on turn 1 that this can then effectively feed off. Its other ability is interesting. So if Circling Vultures is in your hand, you may discard it, play this ability as an instant, but this then acts as fodder for other cards which have a similar ability here, but not for other copies of itself, because there is only one copy in here. Another 1-drop we have is Sewer Rats, so 1/1 for 1. It's got this weird fire breathing type effect where single black you pay +1/+0 till end of turn. However, you can't spend more than 3 black in this way each turn, and you'll notice you also have to pay 1 life to do that. Got Barrow Ghoul, 1 on the black, 4/4, so that sounds pretty impressive, but then very similar to Circling Vultures. During your upkeep, you have to remove the top creature card in your graveyard from the game or bury it. Now, of course, the act of burying it does also mean that it can be then used for fodder for other cards that have a similar ability here, or cards that feed off cards in the nearly said library there, in the graveyard in a similar manner. So keep an eye out for those. Got Fallen Askari, 1 on the black for a 2/2 with flanking, but it can't block. So you could get this out on turn 2. It does have flanking, but the downside is you can't use it as a blocker. This is a flyer that can come out on turn 2. It's a 2/2. During your upkeep, it deals 1 damage to you. So there's a lot of cards here which for the time would have been above the curve, but they have some pretty major downsides. We've got a single copy of Skulking Ghost, 1 on the black, so 2/1 with flying. If it's the target of a spell or an effect, then you bury it. I think that's often what you find on, is it Blue Illusions actually. 2 in the black for a Crypt Rats. There's actually 3 copies of this. It's a 1/1. X Crypt Rat deals X damage to each creature and player. Spend only black mana in this way. So we've got this interesting scalable mass removal, but it's completely symmetrical. It's across the board. Yeah. So there's no get out for black cards. Hidden Horror, 2 and 2 blacks, a 4/4. When it comes into play, choose and discard a creature card or bury Hidden Horror. So turn 3, you can discard stuff from your hand into the graveyard. Has to be a creature, which then could have potentially feed other things that feed off the graveyard. Mischievous Poltergeist, 2 and a black with flying. It's a 1/1. Pay 1 life, regenerate. We've got 3 Nekratogs, another 3-drop, 1 and 2 black. It's a 1/2. Remove the top creature card in your graveyard from the game, +2/+2 until end of turn. Zombie Scavengers, a single copy of this. It's a 3/1. Remove the top creature card in your graveyard from the game to regenerate, if you want to regenerate this. Nekrataal is interesting. So 4 drops, a 2/1, has first strike, and when it comes into play has this, so it's got an ETB that will bury a target non-artifact, non-black creature. So you've got removal stapled to Nekrataal. Shadow Rider, 2 and 2 black, it's a 3/3, so 3/3 for 4. Does have flanking on it though, so whenever a creature without flanking is assigned to block this creature, the blocking creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And then we have this Morinfen, so 5 drop, 3 and 2 black, does have flying. There's a single copy. It's a 5/4. So yeah, good luck with casting your creatures. I don't think I'd ever play this type of deck. I'd find it too cognitively complicated myself. It's quite fun to play around with these, see if you can pull off the stuff, but there's a lot of hoops to jump through here. And part of the reason for me wanting to do this episode was really more because the cards are just pretty unusual, and I wanted to see historically, like, how much do you see these types of cards now, and what variants do we see, which is, you know, I suppose the real reason for sort of doing this episode is using the deck as a basis and then spinning out from there. So Infernal Tribute, so we're on to enchantments, 3 black, 2 sacrifice a creature and play, draw a card. We've got 2 necromancies, 2 and a black. So here we go. You may choose to play necromancy as an instant. If you do, bury it at end of turn. So it's one of these strange enchantments, or whatever they were called. When you play necromancy, choose target creature card in any graveyard. When necromancy comes into play, put that creature into play as though it were just play, and necromancy becomes a creature enchantment that targets the creature. If necromancy leaves play, bury the creature. Interesting. So we'll have to have a look at the oracle wording on this, see whether that's been slightly, makes it slightly clearer in terms of what's going on there. Single copy of Strands of Night, 2 and 2 black, 2 black, paid 2 life, sacrifice a swamp, put target creature card from your graveyard into play. So another way of getting stuff out of the graveyard into play. Got Dark Banishing, which is our instant speed removal, 2 and a black, bury target non-black creature. Spinning Darkness, 4 and 2 black, so this is the 6 drop. You may remove the top 3 black cards in your graveyard from the game instead of paying Spinning Darkness casting cost. Spinning Darkness deals 3 damage to target non-black creature, gain 3 life. 24 swamps in the deck. Got the artwork here from Mirage. And then the sorceries, we've got 5 of those, so 2 drain lives. So for that, for each black you spend in addition to the casting cost, drain life deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Gain 1 life for each 1 damage dealt, but not more than the toughness of the creature or the life total of the player. Drain life damages. We'll have to see if the casting cost has been errated for any reprints that they might have ever been of this. Shattered Crypt, X and 2 black. Return X target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand and lose X life. And then we have Buried Alive, so 2 and a black. Search your library for up to 3 creature cards and put them into your graveyard. Shuffle your library afterwards. So that allows us to get cards into our graveyard to be then used as, you know, feeding, as fodder for the creatures that require it, or anything else that seems to want you to have creature cards in the graveyard. So yeah, let's see where we go with this. So let's start off with the swamps. A lovely swamp artwork here. I think, yeah, definitely one of my favourite sets of artwork in a set for swamps. Particularly like this one, but the others are all cool. In fact, this doesn't look dissimilar to swampy areas close to where I live, actually. Right, so let's go through these. Yeah, these are going to go a bit over the shop here, not in the same order that we went through on the original one. They're sort of I think roughly by type, but within that they're in alphabetical order. you'll notice as well there's no sideboard in this deck. The theme decks had no sideboards in them. So Barrow Ghoul, only ever been printed in Weatherlight. We'll probably see a lot of cards that have never been printed in Weatherlight. So what we're interested in is functional reprints or things that are not, you know, are closely functionally tied to this. Yeah, 4/4 for 2. What? Well, maybe I'll have a look at, you know, what cards, you know, what do you get in black? What 4/4s in black do you get as 2-drops? Will be an interesting thing to maybe look at. Yes, drawback. Graveyard fuel creature, graveyard order matters. So there's a few cards that do that. This is an upkeep cost card. Let's look at this. So I think what I might do is, maybe for the purposes of this, as this is a mono black deck, I will probably focus in a little bit more on black cards. So we'll get this in rough order, and then we'll do our usual thing of is first printing. Oh, do you remember Eater of the Dead? That's that 4-black. Take 1 creature from any graveyard and remove it from the game. Untap Eater of the Dead. That was a 3/4. Yeah, so there's quite a big graveyard theme in this block, isn't there? Right, now I've come to look at this, and you can see here how many of these are actually in this deck from Weatherlight. So overall, what's our count like? 78. So we're going to have a few cards here that are other colours as well. It's a bit of a green thing, so I expect them to be combinations here with green cards. And then you got things that really played with the idea of feeding off the graveyard, which is the mimeoplasm. Of course, Deathrite Shaman. I mean, this you can actually play in a mono black deck if you're not too worried you don't want to activate this. So what's the most recent thing? Sauron the Necromancer, 3 and 2 black, 4/4 with Menace. Whenever it attacks, exile target creature from the graveyard, create a tapped and attacking token. So yeah, much better, but then it is a 4/4 for 5. Gorex the Tomb Shell. So then let's do this. So I want CMC of 2. Oops. There we go. CMC of 2, and we will try power 4. Was it a 4? It was a 4/4, wasn't it? Yeah. this is definitely one strange deck. It'd be interesting to look at the Urza one because, yeah, see what the... So we've got a 4/4 for 2. Whenever Flesh Reaver successfully deals damage to a creature or opponent, Flesh Reaver deals an equal amount of damage to you. Okay, so that's how they dealt with that one. Notice I haven't filtered yet for black. So, I don't see many 4/4s for 2 in Magic, and as a consequence we've got all these various downsides. That's here because it's a 4/4 on the other side. Actually quite a lot of these, yeah. See, look, they're all 4/4s as a result of them being flipped. So yeah, there's not, yeah, that's interesting. So don't get many 4/4 for 2s in Magic. Now of course I could play around with the power toughness a bit more, but there's something I was really curious about. Now of course if you go to 4/4s for 3, then a bit of a bigger difference. If we go up to modern times, again we've got some that transform here. Oh wow, that's pretty nasty. So is there any downside on that? So 2 and a green for 4/4. The trample, toxic one, players don't and it's, so whenever it deals damage, it also proliferates. That looks crazy good. Okay. So is that the only 4/4 for 3? Or is that the downside? Angus the Bridge. 3 black for 4/4. Okay. So yeah, we're dealing with a lot of cards here that are pretty unique, which is again, part of the attraction for this particular choice of deck. I wanted to see where we go. So that's funny. Rules nightmare. Oh, that's amusing. Cards that are known for having interests are difficult or nearly impossible to resolve within the comprehensive rules. I've not come across that yet in Magic. What's that unique CR reference? There is an entire rule in the CR just to cover this card and no other card. That's amusing. So, comprehensive rules. Okay. It's quite a bit. Players may not rearrange cards in their graveyard. This is a little known rule because new cards that carry out graveyard order haven't been printed in years. Oh my word. Yeah. That could be a whole episode. Alright. Let's go back in again. Activate from the hand, evasion, graveyard order matters, special action, upkeep cost, drawback. Okay, graveyard fuel creature. That sounds like something we would definitely be interested in for this type of deck. Let me just check here, and that I in fact looked at just a moment ago, so I thought that was it. So we don't really want to go back down that rabbit hole, do we? So it's just the same sort of thing. Okay. Let's activate from hand. Let's see what that gives us. So let's go through that. So we'll do that. I think I'm going to slice through the colours here. And we'll put this in order though. Okay, so we've got, so just looking at the black one first, we've got Circling Vultures. You can see there's quite a number of cards here where they're multicoloured as well. Activate from hand, okay. So let's see how common we get that in white. So this one shares the colour black with it. And again here of course I'm referencing the casting cost rather than the colour identity. So black we looked at, which is that. Blue. Yeah, there's quite a few multicoloured ones, isn't there? I'll have a look at the channel. It seems to be a thing to do with discard. We'll do a search on channel in a moment. What about red? Oh cool, yeah, Simian Spirit Guide, yes, of course, I'd completely forgotten about that. Elvis Spirit Guide. So yeah, it seems to be a thing, but not if I do it across all colours. Or don't have that as restriction. So yeah, 34 cards. So that does fit on a single page actually. And then if I take this out and just search for channel, because some of these have got channel in the name of the card, but obviously I'm interested in these. So that's it. Oh, can we go on in Destiny, of course. Yeah, so only a Kamigawa thing channel. It's also cropping up in these Modern Horizons too. Okay. Moving on. Crypt Rats. can see that's been reprinted a few times. It crops up in Modern Horizons. Player burn each, sweeper creature burn. So yeah, pestilence with a body. At the end of turn, if there are no creatures in place of pestilence, black pestilence does 1 damage to each creature and each player. So sweep a creature burn, but attached to a creature rather than just, I mean, red I suppose springs to mind as a possible home for this sort of thing. Let's see what colour that was really, yeah, that was first a thing would interest me, I think, from a historical perspective. So there's Crypt Rats. So we've got, yeah, green here from way back. Arabian Nights. So a 4-drop 3/3 with flying. It's in play. Any player can any player can play green to do 1 damage to each player. Okay, and each flying creature in play. Yeah, you can see quite a number of red cards. Turns up in green where it's basically creatures with flying, I think. Yeah. Looks like very much the domain of red, doesn't it? Friend Pestilence Demon. Eight drop, 7/6 flying. Black Pestilence Demon deals 1 damage to each creature and each player. Yeah, that is a really interesting card. I like how that one sort of interacts with snow-covered swamps. Okay, Fallen Askari. This was in the World Championship from '97, so I think quite possibly we may have seen this card before. Bear with the set mechanic. Okay, that's cool. Let's have a look at that. That's a nice historical rabbit hole to go down, I think. So always interesting to see what they've done with bears. Oh, of course, yeah, the Doughty Slayer. I'm looking forward to when we get up to Tempest and see if there were any tournament decks which played around with Shadow. That'll be cool. So bear with flanking, bear with shadow, bear with phasing, echo, fading, kicker. That's a quite a cool category of tag, isn't it? And there's lots of these wacky ones from the unsets. Oh yeah, the Knight of Holy Nimbus. Does have flanking on it. Time spiral. Be a nice little sub collection. I think, you know, I'm always looking, not that I think about buying these necessarily, but it's always interesting to speculate on little magic sub collection, you know, themed sub collections. You can have a nice binder with like certain themed cards. And it's always interesting when you stumble across through these tags, that sort of thing. So I'm sure there's plenty of like bears with whatever subsets within Magic's history which would fit into that and allow you to do that. Moving on to Fledgling Djinn. Oh yeah, these sort of cards. So it's just cropped up online. I don't know if anybody ever played Vintage Masters online. It's pretty interesting. I think I probably did one draft of it maybe. Invasion and a drawback. So it is another bear, like 2/2 for 2. Upside it has flying, drawback it has this thing where it's damaging you. And you'll see quite a few. Let me see if we can find some cards in Magic that do that quite a bit. So I'm going to go with black, and it's going to be a creature, I think. Yes. I mean, there are enchantments that do that sort of thing. Oracle deals something to you. There we go. I'm interested when that Bellowing Fiend was actually printed. There we go. It's pretty freaky artwork. Of course, Kezadrix. Teacher's a Pit, Auntie Snitch. I guess lots of oh, some of these are because, yeah, hang on, let me rephrase that, because that's in there for a different reason. Whenever something deals damage to you. Oh yeah, the Shattered Djinn, of course. That's one of the guild mages. During your upkeep, Fledgling Djinn deals 1 damage to you. Whether doing that would make things better. No, it's not specific enough. Upkeep would be would actually. I was thinking about putting that in, but I wanted to see first. So yeah, these ones that check on upkeep and then so during upkeep it does damage. So you can see how we had a thing here and then sort of disappeared. Again, Time Spiral. It's funny, isn't it? Time Spiral did reintroduce. Well, it's not funny that it reintroduced it because it was part of the theme, I suppose, but just interesting time in Magic to do that, to bring in some older concepts you were seeing a lot of. But yeah, very much a thing on black cards, as you can see here. I don't think I screened. Yeah, let's just see if we do go through the colours beyond just screening it out for black, whether that's the case. So yeah. So as you'll see as I move through, very much of that. What do we get in red? It's the other one. I expect to see it a bit more. Yeah. Because remember, it was on Force of Nature as well. Hidden Horror. Was in that Graveborn deck. Do you remember those? The premium deck series, all foil. Those flew off the shelves. I remember having real tried. This was before I started ordering online. I remember trying to get these from my local game store. And I think I had to wait a little while to get them because people were buying up multiple copies of these to get 4 of certain cards in the deck for their legacy decks. Discard outlet. And what do we get come up? Oh dear. It's been a while since I must have look at that, let's try again. That is not what I wanted to happen. There we go. So, Mercenary Knight from Portal. So that's when we first saw it. And actually, if you look, so this is 2 and a black for 4/4. When Mercenary Knight comes into play from your hand, choose and discard a summon creature from your hand or destroy Mercenary Knight. When Hidden Horror comes into play, choose and discard a creature card or bury Hidden Horror. Yeah, so interesting. Sky Shroud's Vampire. Yeah, I remember this from Tempest. So this one, that gives it +2/+2. As you can see, the act of discarding a creature card does different things. For this one, it's really, is an additional. I suppose it keeps it in play when it comes into play. Got some enchantments there that trigger off discarding stuff. And of course you've got things like different contexts, but you've got survival of the fittest, which feeds off of discard. But as we move up, we get things like 3 in a black, 3/4. When it enters the battlefield, you can actually just choose to sacrifice a creature, or discard a creature. Oh, and you get to draw a card. So, bit of an upside there. Apart from just using it to keep it in play. Mischievous Poltergeist. 1/1 with flying for 2 in a black. Also has this regenerate through paying life ability. Did get reprinted in 6th edition, as you can see. So yeah, loads of cards with life payment on them. If I go through and just concentrate on, say, creatures. Oh, creatures. 174. Let's just do that in age order. So yeah, the concept of paying life to get something obviously goes way back. You can see here we've got sewer rats. Also got Morinfen. So there's some already 1, 2, 3 cards in this deck which do that. But you can see there's quite a number here through Magic's history that result in you paying 1 life, or in this case 2 life, when it comes into play, and more life actually, or actually the payment of life does a number of different things. So within this case, regenerate. Here it's tied to fire breathing. Here it's pay 3 life counters. But here what I was trying to think about is cumulative upkeep. Yeah, that was the other one. Just paying life to literally keep it in play. There's of course Dark Confident, and these other ones where you're paying life equal to some converted mana cost. And there were, going back to Carnophage, around this period in time, there was a number of cards. So what's this, Exodus? Where yeah, there's a sort of mono black deck where there's quite a number of cards in the deck that are eating away at your life total, but they're above curve, and so you're desperately trying to get these cards out, doing damage to your opponent, whilst at the same time avoiding you getting down to 0. And yeah, there's a whole archetype of those sort of super fast black decks where you're trying to kill your opponent before your actually own deck kills you. But you'll also see a number of cards in black where definitely you're using life as a resource to get some bonus apart from just keeping the creature in play. And if I was to go through the colour pie again, you'll sort of see where the bumps are. So you can see a number here, because they have black in the casting cost. And there's a few mono white ones here. If we look at blue, do we even see anything in blue yet? So any mono blue stuff. There's Defiler of Dreams. There's an alt cost, but the rest are all multicolours. Just right ones, yeah, 157. Surprise, surprise. Red, 9, of which there are 1, 2 mono red cards. And then in green, I don't know what to expect there, not too many. Oh, do you remember Putrid Leech? That was from Alara Reborn. Didn't that see quite a bit of tournament play at the time? I think it did. So that's a pump spell on that one. Yeah, so this must be the only... No, is that one... yeah, no, see, that's black on the flip side. But is this the only mono green one with... yeah, pay 2 life cost on a creature, yeah. Ah, Morinfen. Or Morinfen, sorry. Cures headaches fast. And what we create? Ah, yes, Gallow. Yeah, Gallow Braid. Was that in the same? That was in the same set. So you have both of these are 5 drops. One has flying, one has trample, and they both have the 1 life cumulative upkeep. This one's Gallow Braid's a 5/5. Morinfen is a 5/4. Some of these we've looked at already. Different episodes. I mean, out of curiosity, what this makes me want to look up is, so CMC 5s with flying. And I would also say that have a power greater than 4, maybe. That's what I am minded to look at. Oh, it's on a wall, that sort of thing. Oh, there's Chromat. So Chromat, because you can give it flying for blue-red. I had to do a double take there. I couldn't see it. I'm thinking, what Chromat has flying as a a static ability, but now it's activated. I always think this is a really cool, like 5-colour commander if you can't really find something, because of the utility on here. So yeah, if all those fails, just you can always use that as a placeholder. And you got things like Baneslayer. This was a powerful card. I don't know if anybody remembers when this came out. And you've got various demons in that 5-drop, 5-power slot. Obviously here I did greater than 4, so we've also got some even larger stuff power wise. Let's go through the colours. Why not? Because we can. Oh yeah, we've got some classic white angels here actually. In blue, are we going to see things? Yeah, it's a sky swallow I think we spotted. Desolation Angel. Yeah, Bloodgift Demon, Shadowborn Demon, an Archfiend of Depravity. Some of my favourite demons here. So no surprise, I suspect Red is going to give us dragons. Yeah, Thundermaw Hellkite. Yeah, you can have a lot of fun with like a red, white, black flyers theme, I think, with the right commander. And so I'm just looking at this. I'd forgotten about Maelstrom Archangel. So Wilberg 5/5 with flying. So you may play a non-name card. Lucky that's not a legendary, eh? But then you have Niv-Mizzet Reborn. Because you know what I want to do now, even though I've gone off of a complete tangent here. Yeah, like 5-colour flyers. That are, of course, legends. Yeah, complete sidetrack. Yeah, Cyan. Yeah, because that was that. Yeah, it was the 5-colour Commander 2017 deck, wasn't it? That's a cool deck. Yeah, we'll definitely be covering that. We're going to be on 2016 soon, so we're about 5-6 episodes away from getting onto this. That was from Time Spiral, by the way. Yeah. Cool. Oh, good old Necratog. So I suppose we'll have to look at the ATOGs. we sort of looked at, don't know if we specifically looked at graveyard order matters, just quickly go off down here. So these cards travel by the order of the graveyard or rearrange them somehow. If any of these cards are in a player's deck, care must be taken to preserve the order of the graveyard. Yeah. And you can see things like Death Spark. Let me just properly go into this so you can sort of see. And this came up before with the Barrow Ghoul. And you've got things like Ashen Ghoul as well. And I mentioned about Death Spark. I think, wasn't that in that? Yeah, the Cold Snap theme deck. I knew it was in a theme deck. One of the theme decks. And you've got things like this, like SlowTV Digger. I mean, if you look at chronologically, these sort of cards, yeah, so again, Circling Vultures, which we've seen, stuff like Corpse Dance. There's our Nekrataal. What happened here? Did that? Oh, I didn't name, that's why. It's supposed to be release date. That's better. Okay. So yeah, look at Nether's Shadow. If Shadow is in graveyard with any combinations of cards above it that includes at least 3 cards, it can be returned to play during upkeep for its normal casting cost. Shadow can attack on same turn summoned or returned to play. Looks like they were desperately trying to squeeze this in here at the time. So this would have been, limited edition alpha. So slightly reworded here through the errata text. Yeah, it's a Griffin. Not surprisingly, not something we see so much nowadays. That's cool artwork. Turn to turn, if at any time at the top of your card in your graveyard is an instant interrupt or sorcery card. Wow. It'd be interesting to see if any here I actually have when we come to go through Weatherlight artwork. I actually can't remember off the top of my head. That's an interesting card. I think that's going to become my catchphrase for the series. That's an interesting card. But the other thing was, the cycle of ATOGs. So, if you've not seen this cycle, let's try and get this in the chronologically the right order. So you can see, what does this count as? Is it, so a cycle is within a set, a mega cycle is within a block. And this is a mega cycle because this goes outside of the block. We've got 3 here from the same block, so Fortog, Chronotog, Necratog, but you had Atog and Auratog. Now the other thing is, once you start looking at like the history of the ATOG, so type of ATOG, release date ascending. So you can see once we get through the cycle, we then have these. So we've got a 5-colour ATOG Legends. I keep wanting to say general actually. And then we've got these. So this would be what? Odyssey. So the same set. So you have ATOG Tribal in Odyssey to some degree. They're all uncommon here. So I'm assuming, if you were lucky enough to, I don't know, pick up one of these, as a first pick in draft, would you want to try and draft ATOG? I don't know. And you can see all of these have a specific sack or discard ability, which doesn't necessarily yeah, I don't know how the synergies work out there, put it that way, but clearly this is wanting you to build an ATOG deck. Oh, and there's another, hang on, so what's that? Red, green, white, blue, blue, black. Yeah, so that would be what the allied colours. And you have a Megatog. Of course, I don't know if so if you try, one thing to do is it Shapeshifter would have oh, that's sorry, my mistake. Let me rephrase that. What I'm looking for is the Oracle text of Changeling. When did Changeling become a thing? So yeah, not until quite later. Okay, good to know. But of course, if you were building a ATOG deck, like an ATOG commander deck, then yeah, you pad it out with changelings. Yeah. Nekrataal, you can see been reprinted another number of times. There has been different artwork. First time I came across it would have been 10th edition. It was in the World Championship deck, so we probably have covered this before. Yeah, it's come up before. And we've got the terms like, you know, virtual, we've got here, this is interesting, so virtual French vanilla. These creatures and vehicles are effectively just French vanilla after entering the battlefield. They may have an ETB. So you have vanilla, which is, you know, where you've got straight, you know, power, toughness, and, you know, that's it really. There's nothing else, you know, there's no abilities. Then French vanilla, which is a keyworded ability, and then virtual French vanillas, which is keyworded ability with an ETB or on cast. Yeah, and there's quite a number of those, not surprisingly. I'm assuming, no, that isn't a tag, so vanilla isn't a tag as an O tag. But, there are other ways in Scryfall of getting it to just show you regular vanilla cards. We also have this other thing of virtual legendary, which I'm sure you've seen before, but just in case you haven't. Oops, something weird happened there. What I'm interested in is, because we've been talking about, let's see, I think you probably know guess what I'm going to put in here. Yeah, because I'm going through the 4-colour commander decks at the moment. So. Now, of course, these very rarely got reprinted. Glintine Nephilim is in the Commander 2016 as a support card. But these all cropped up in Guild Pack. You can see some of them crop up on that list thing. And something else as well. And if you just do, say, creatures. Oh, I keep doing creatures down. Creature. Yeah, 36 that fall into that category. No doubt many of you have looked at these and gone, yeah, that before you even did a Scryfall search. It's like, think, yeah, well, why weren't these legends? I mean, probably less likely now because they would just be a legend. Here, when I first saw this, I can't remember when I pulled one of these. I immediately looked down and thought it was going to say summon legend, but didn't. Clearly, a lot of people have an Uncle Istvan in the Magic verse. Sewer Rats. Yeah, we've looked at some of the things here. I mentioned about fire breathing. If you look specifically at fire breathing and how it manifests itself on, say, black cards, because clearly we tend to see it more in red, then you can sort of see what that might look like. In fact, let's just try it in monocolour black. So we've seen it on these two in previous episodes, and then stuff we haven't looked at yet because it's in later sets, but it turns up on the Doughty Mercenary and the Pit Imp. But you can see there's a few cards here in Magic's history where it does crop up. If you were to go through, the colour pie, it's a bit of a thing going on there in white. Again, it sort of tails off with later cards. In blue, yeah, a few things here and there. Red, no surprise, loads of fire breathing, and then in green, was it just one or two? Oh, it's the black pipes. Don't know how I managed that. Green, yeah, that's it. Folk of the Pines, I remember that now. Shadow Rider, flanking. So flank, 3/3 flanker for 4, and class type only. What is that? These creatures have only a class type and no type correlating to whatever fantasy race they might belong to. Okay, 35 of those. I see what they mean here. So yeah, so it's not like human soldier or human wizard or merfolk wizard or human knight. Yeah, it literally is just knight, wizard, warrior. Okay, I was aware of things like minions. Probably soldiers I've been more aware of. Oh. And there's Order of the Ebon Hand. Initiates of the Ebon Hand. I like these cards. These are these ones that filter, can filter black. Another French vanilla. I mean, how widespread, just as a concept in Magic's history, has flanking been? So we've got 35 cards with flanking. And I know, I suppose I became more aware of it because of, where is it, these two, which are in that, one of those, if you remember, there is an episode I uploaded where I built one of the retrospective Mirage block decks, and that was the red-white one with flanking. So yeah, if you're interested, that's probably fairly easy to find. Check that out. If I remember, I'll actually include a link to that in the description for this. It's a pretty interesting deck to look at as well. So yeah, a lot of flanking in this set, and then it crops up again in Time Spiral, and also, what was that, Planar Chaos? So yeah, the planar block. So Time Spiral, Planar Chaos, Future Sight. Doesn't look like, just looking at it here without looking at the cards really hard, I don't see that it was in the shifted slot, the time shifted slot. These don't look like, they're not, you know, like, so for this one it would be in a different border. In this one it would have, they changed the inner borders, didn't they? So we saw, I think, some of those in the previous episode, where there's a much more marked colour area here, and it isn't this sort of marbly effect. And then for these ones, wasn't it the case that the border had completely changed, and it had the mana symbol sort of down here somewhere? I can't remember which side exactly. So yeah, none of those fit into that. They were just in the main body of the sets. But clearly they wanted a nod back. And if you remember, one of the big problems in this block that made it so complicated is, I think there was one was particularly egregious for that. And that was the sheer amount of keywords, abilities, those sort of things was just off the charts. And then we have one in C16, which I'm sure we'll see when we get to the deck that has this in. Oh, it's a partner. So yeah, when we get to the a particular partner, it's always good when without me trying stuff comes up. Skulking Ghost, yeah, that illusion ability. So here we have with 24 cards with the illusion ability, some of which are actually illusions, but not all of them. And if anybody remembers, I don't know whether they remember it, there was actually fairly early on when they made those, do you remember the special decks that were designed to be a step above intro decks, that were aimed at sort of Friday Night Magic and to be slightly more competitive? There was a mono blue deck around that time which had, so it would have been, I think, yeah, it was the M12, I believe, those decks. Yeah, I can't even remember what they're called now, but yeah, the name changed, I think, over the years. But I do remember there being a blue deck which had yeah, these in them. I think I also remember this from one of the Commander games as well. I'm sorry, the Magic the Gathering games. So yeah, there's a few sort of pre-modern ones. Yeah, there's the that sort of frame, inner frame I was looking at, talking about there on this one. Planar Chaos card. So that would have been in the time shifted slot, whatever they used to call that. Yeah, so you can see here, I think I mentioned this originally, definitely something you see in blue a lot more than black. But cropped up. It's interesting it cropped up in black first. Yeah, and didn't really become a blue thing. And so this implies, you can see there, look, that's the colour shifted one. So once they'd colour shifted that, then we start to see it. Interesting. Zombie Scavengers. Remove the top creature card in your graveyard from the game. Regenerate. So that one you're exiling it. Yeah, another. So falls into the same category of stuff we've looked at already. If I look at the card, you can see, yeah, replace with exile. Infernal Tribute. I mean, that's something that always fascinates me actually, is enchantments with draw on them. This one is because it's on the it's enchantment on the other side. So these also, some of these are tagged up with draw because they have an ETB on them. Yeah, so when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. And you can see it's sort of manifesting that in lots of different ways. So some trigger off something else happening, some have an activation cost, this one 2, and then sacrifice a card in play, but you can see we're not tapping it, so that can be paid for and have cards sacrificed as many times as you can actually do that, as you have resources. Obviously some stuff here is going to be enchantments that have cycling on them, so there's going to be a number of cyclers here because you draw a card off of the cycling as well. Yeah, but this sort of thing really, you know, where the enchantment sits in play and then that draw gets triggered from various things. I think they're always interesting cards to track down. If you're looking for, say, card draw in a EDH deck, I suppose, in the particular colour. So if we were to go through here, and of course you can see with certain colours there's going to be some secondary conditions you have to meet to be able to get that, you know, to tap into that card draw, if it's that style of draw. But yeah, this wasn't the greatest of searches because of course there's a lot here where it's just, you're getting card draw off of just casting the card, or something else happening like you're cycling it. The other thing is, rather than go through that because it's not going to be very useful, is with artifacts. Yeah, all those nice artifacts where you might get some sort of yes, very amusing. Some sort of draw off of it. And some of these, you're probably aware of the artifacts where, you know, they have an option to sack them, and then you get you can draw a card off of that. But I'm more thinking of the ones where you specifically either something triggers, or you tap it, or you pay a cost, and it's a repeatable card draw. There's things like Phyrexian Vault as well. And when you sort of compare that to the original card, sack a card in play, draw a card in black, but you've got this you know, black artifact as well that does similar stuff as well, but there's lots of different things in here, which is cool. This is our Phyrexian Vault. It's interesting why they did it in Infiltration Lens as well. And of course there's a one-off staple to the clue stones. Oh, Necromancy. Look at that. Wow. Okay. What have we got? Enchant Change, Necromancy from any, gains flash, reanimate creature. Yep. So, reanimate creature. Pretty widespread thing. And if we look at it historically, you can see, yeah, it's been around a long time. We've, I'm sure I've had Dance of the Dead maybe come up at some point. Yeah. Now, in terms of enchantments, that do it. Was Animate Dead the one? So I'm just seeing if that's one of the ones I was thinking of that was included in that. Okay. Oh no, yeah, it was. There you go. I was in that graveyard premium deck. Yeah. I think that might have been one of the cards that people were after actually, because it was printed such a long time ago. I see it quite a few times on enchantments. Strands of Night, another enchantment. Pay 2 life, sacrifice a swamp, put a target creature card from your graveyard into play. So there, again, reanimate creature, recursion on creature. So 73 cards with that recursion ability on them. You can see enchantments on instants, on creatures, not surprisingly. Got things like No Rest for the Wicked and Tortured Existence. What about Auntie? I was looking to see when we saw a legendary creature with it. It's red black. Because you got things like Disentomb as well, a sorcery. But again, it raises, you look through these and think, oh yeah, what sort of cards does it commonly come up on? And so if I was to go through and say, yeah, how often do you see it at instant speed? So you have 10 at instant speed in terms of sorcery speed, 21. Enchantments, 13. Do we even see it on an artifact? Oh, Skeleton Shard. 3 tap or black and tap. Return target artifact creature. Card from your graveyard to your hand. Ah, cool. Oh, it's in the Plane Chase set. Wow. Huh. I wonder what deck that was in then. Shattered Crypt. Return X target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand and lose X life. Worse than Death Denied. Return X target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, and you don't get to use X life. Well, there we go. That's pretty cool. Yeah, regrowth creature. So a number of regrowth cards. And that whole, return let me just break this down a bit. See how that looks. Probably not one of the best searches I've done, but see if I can do this. Try that. Return X might be better. So return X stuff. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Wake the dead. Yeah, treat the dead. Also see it in green and blue. There is in white as well. There's a red-green one as well. Return X cards at random from your graveyard to your hand. That's pretty clever way of combining. So you've got the the fact that it's in green, but then you've got the chaos element of red. That sort of randomness. Spinning Darkness. Another graveyard alters matter. It's a pitch spell. Has synergy with black. What's graveyard fuel considered to be then? Apart from just fuel for my graveyard. I have headstone. 1 on the black. Move any from the game. Target card from the game. Draw a card. Okay. Cremate, Blood Curdler, Cabal Inquisitor. Oh, there's, yep, Psychotog and Sacratog. Oh, there's some, that's what I was talking about. So they're the future sight time-shifted cards. With it down, it was down, so it was down this side there, yep. That's cool. Was that a cycle? Just have a look. No, it was not. Cool artwork though. Empty the pits. Yeah. Oh, treasure cruise falls into that category. Oh, of course, all the delve stuff. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's a lot of delve, wasn't there, from that period? That was the Tarkia stuff, Khans of Tarkia, and other associated sets. Yeah, interesting thing to explore. Graveyard fuel. Of which you can clearly see that delve is definitely a thing. So 29 delve cards. Oh, okay. There you go then. So that's when we first saw it. That just has it because it's got Phyrexian Delver in it. Oh yeah, Delver and Secrets. Okay, ignoring those two. And you can see there's Khans of Tarkia. Lots of it was in Fate Reforged. And then a few sets here and there. It's Tassiger. There you go then. Okay. It's amazing the amount of new stuff I learned by doing this. Just in terms of stuff I forget as to when, you know, abilities first appeared and things like this. Oh yeah, this was in Graveborn. Yeah. Turned up in World Championship decks. Reprinted in Odyssey with slightly different artwork. It's in the Commander products. Yep, the theme decks, as I mentioned, Magic Online theme decks, of which this is one. Or that might have been a later one, didn't they? Yeah, didn't they actually have two? I think they had two theme decks as well that were designed for legacy play. Maybe there was, I think, a mono red goblins deck. Maybe they're referring to that. Not sure. Yeah, I think there might have been like a graveyard type deck as one, and then a mono red deck as the other. Doing that totally from memory. Tutored to graveyard. So we see that 28 times in Magic according to the tagging. First being Transmute Artifact. Oh yeah, Entomb. That was instant speed. That was also in. Was that also in there? Yeah, yeah, yeah. It'd be interesting at some point. I'm definitely going to cover those PD premium deck series. There was only 3 of them. I do have all 3. This was the hardest one to track down. The Slivers one was super easy. In fact, I got that. Well, I say super easy. It didn't sell very well when it initially came out, and I found a copy of it, I think, lurking around in a game store, which I think they bought off of another store, maybe, and they were selling it for like something silly, like, maybe, was that the one I bought for $10 at the time? I think it might have been. I think that's the one I'm thinking of, because there was a burn deck, wasn't there? There was a red deck, there was this, and I think there was a Slivers deck, if I've got that right. Yeah. And they all had, quite different. I don't think they did particularly well, which is why they didn't last beyond about 3 iterations. Plus, of course, there was a, as usual with foil, I think that was the one. That also may have had quite a bad curling on it, I think, perhaps. Yeah, Sign has this weird thing where as a result of you copying a dragon that you've searched from the library, the dragon actually ends up in the graveyard. Interesting to use in combinations with other things that are capable of using, making copies of creatures creatures in the graveyard, because this is like Wooburg, so that opens up a whole creative palette for that sort of strategy of deck, I suppose. Yeah, not something you see a ton of though. Well, I suppose in the wrong hands this could be pretty severely abused, so I'm assuming they do have to be careful what sets they opt to include this in, this sort of thing. Right, moving on. Dark Banishing, yep. That's staple to Notorious Assassin. Slightly different way of doing it there. Well, interestingly, I don't know how clearly you can see that. Let me bring that up. So you discard a card from your hand. The later set. But, would that have been? Yeah, I'm just trying to think out loud here. There wouldn't have been a period where both of those sets would have been in standard. No. So. Remove all creature destroy, which we've looked at a lot of times, and there are a ton of cards that do this, but it's not going to hurt to just see, for a 3-drop, what 3-drop destroy spells are there. Notice this one, it also has the benefit of it can't be regenerated. There's clearly a lot. Let me just concentrate purely on black here. And the other thing I will do, because it is important to the discussion, if I'm... Why did I do this? Let's try that. That's better. Yeah, because Dark Banishing's been reprinted quite a few times. As you can see, it was originally in Ice Age, which is where we've seen it before. But what I was curious about is 3-drop instance. That's what I'm interested in. Got expunge, swat, slay, execute, rend flesh. There's these interesting two in Kamigawa, rend flesh, rend spirit. So with one, destroy target non-spirit creature, and the other destroy target spirit. The conditional one here is that you can only bury target non-black creatures. And you can see other ones here where there's a condition. This is an interesting one. Eyelight's ending, so destroy target non-elf creature. And then we have murder, which this is what it's interesting in. So I think outside of, so just within black, within mono black, that was the first 3-drop instant. We'll destroy, very corner case here I suppose, where there was no condition. You just destroy target creature. And I don't know whether any of the others, I mean, you've got a few things like this where it can destroy a creature because it's a permanent, but you can see that's multiple colours. I mean, if you're looking for the same thing at sorcery speed, sorcery, not sorcery. And in this is the domain of land destruction and artifact destruction. But then you have things like Vindicate, which okay is white black. Assassinate does tapped creatures, which is interesting because often that's a thing that you see a lot of in white. Like instant speed, you know, white destruction spells that destroy attacking creature. And then finally drain life. So yeah, it's been reprinted a number of times, and of course originally from way back, but really just in reprinted within that time frame. And if you look at that, it's mostly special stuff really. So the original variations of alpha, beta, unlimited, revised, 4th edition, Mirage, 5th edition, and then like nothing. Now of course if you look in the tagger you'll see that, well, you have things like Consume Spirit, which is, if we look here, when was the first time that was printed? So yeah, a lot earlier. So Mirrodin. So going forward, I suppose that's the version of it. So it's Consumed Spirit is better than that. As you can see with Drain Life, it says not more than the toughness of the creature or the life total of the player. Drain Life damages. Excuse me, it does X damage to target creature or player, and you gain X life. So yeah. So the point is, you might want to over destroy because it gives you more life. Consumes Spirit gives you more life, if I've read that correctly. And yeah, I mean, Drain Life, it's a thing on a lot of cards. Interesting Ebony Charms there, because we've seen that cycle. I mean, it's pretty scaled back, and a lot of these are not, clearly not X spells. And if I try and find something, let's see how successful I am, where it mentions, that's going to be hard. See if I can do this. There we go. We've got things like Exsanguinate as well. So variations here. Of course, Gary. There's quite a few that play around with life. You've got Debt to the Deathless. It's a conditional one based on clerics, which is amusing. Notice, yeah, the wording there is different because it's not draining. Yeah, it's to sort of have that. It's saying you gain life equal to the damage dealt, whereas the other ones we've looked at here specifically mention X life. If I do X damage, then it will come up. But yeah, been kicking around for quite a while. Okay, there we have it. Hopefully you've enjoyed that episode as much as I have, just going through and going down various rabbit holes. It's a bit of a weird twist there because of, mainly because of this strange time period and the fact that I'd already, featured quite a number of decks around this period and based on similar artifacts that were kicking around here. So hopefully as we move forward, we'll get back into periods where I can talk a little bit more about specific, or base this on specific tournament decks of the time. It looks like we've got quite a few interestingly named ones coming up here. Next week one, I'll have to have a poke around and see whether anything interesting happened as a result of Tempest coming in. I don't see anything listed here, but it doesn't mean necessarily there weren't any tournament decks. It just happens to be it's not mentioned in the article or not referenced. So I'll have to look through some of my books and have a look online at some of the Pro Tours and the Worlds and various other tournaments as well outside of the Pro Tour, and just see whether we had any interesting decks appear as a result of just Tempest basically being introduced into the mix and Ice Age homelands and alliances rotating out. Thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future episode.